The first case we'll discuss is Bonaparte v. Baltimore, Hampton, and Lake Roland Railroad. In the 1890s, Baltimoreans were moving out of town. Well-to-do Baltimoreans were moving out of town. About 5 miles from the city center, the Roland Park Company had acquired hundreds of acres of land, and they were selling building lots to the city's ruling elite if they could get them to move there. One member of the audience tonight lives there. Roland Park was to be the town's premier garden suburb. But suburban success in a horse and buggy era depended on some form of rail transit to work downtown. The North Avenue Railroad had established an electric railway service to Hamden, one of the first in the country, but its terminus was there. The only service through Roland Park was a separate jerk order connection. Jerk order, first time I've stumbled on that term, but it was the old-fashioned term relating to a branch subsidiary streetcar line. Only ran an occasional horse-drawn omnibus out to the amusement park at Lake Roland. A pre-existing corporation had been founded in 1872, the Baltimore, Hamden, and Lake Roland Railroad Company, but it was dormant. Edward H. Boughton, the manager of Roland Park, decided to revitalize that corporation, to connect it with the North Avenue Railroad line, and provide electric railroad service through Roland Park to make the lots there more saleable and to permit the bankers and lawyers and doctors to speed downtown on the streetcar. Construction started, but then there was an unsuspected obstacle. Just to the north of the Roland Park holdings, at the corner of Deepdene Road and Roland Avenue, Charles Joseph Bonaparte resided in his country home, Chestnutwood, with his wife, the former Ellen Day. Some of you may recognize Chestnutwood. What is Chestnutwood today? The Roland Park Country School. It's been surrounded with more modern buildings, but that's the Roland Park Country School. Charles Joseph Bonaparte was a Baltimore lawyer, but with a famous lineage. He was the great-grandnephew of Napoleon Bonaparte. His grandfather, Jerome, the emperor's younger brother, had married Baltimore's Betsy Patterson while on shore leave in 1803. Napoleon disapproved and only made Jerome the king of Westphalia on condition that he get rid of Betsy. But he left Betsy with a son, a young Jerome. Young Jerome eventually became Prince Jerome Napoleon. Betsy Patterson spent most of her time in Europe trying to reclaim her royalty. Prince Jerome Napoleon became Charles's father. Charles Joseph Bonaparte, born in 1851, was the legitimate offspring of a royal family, with a crazy grandmother who was also very rich. After graduating from Harvard College and Harvard Law School, young Bonaparte returned to Baltimore in the private practice of law. He commuted daily in a horse and buggy from Chestnutwood to his law practice, which is located on Park Avenue right across the street from the Maryland Historical Society. Disdainful of any claim to royalty, he had a routine law practice relating to corporate law, wills and trusts and all of that. Bonaparte disliked modern technology. When he heard that an electrified rail system was run in front of his house, he was aghast. With it would come both electrocution and the wrong kind of people. Bonaparte brought suit seeking an injunction to prevent the railroad from operating. In the best legal tradition of nitpicking, he argued that the corporate charter for the Baltimore, Hamden, and Lake Roland Railroad Company had required that the railroad be finished by 1882. Since that deadline had been missed, the charter was not operational, and the business had to be shut down. The Maryland Court of Appeals agreed, and Charles Joseph Bonaparte got an injunction against the operation of the rail line in front of his house. One Luddite stood in the path of progress. There is an old legal maxim: injunctions are for sale. Perhaps Bonaparte, if given the right sum of money or the right opportunity, might relinquish his injunction. Apparently that's what happened. Shortly thereafter, Bonaparte sold Chestnut Wood. He moved to Long Green Valley. Bella Vista is the house depicted. He commuted to Baltimore in his horse and buggy with 2 fast horses. I think there was also a rail line that he probably used occasionally. Some of the reports have him in 4 horses, but I couldn't believe that. The Bella Vista mansion had no electricity, and as you might suspect, beginning in 1893, an electric railroad served Roland Park, ran by Chestnut Wood on out to Lake Roland. I don't know if you can see it, but depicted on the right is the 24 streetcar line, which was the Roland Park line, running from University Parkway to Lake Roland. Charles Joseph Bonaparte's private life may have been routine and stodgy, but his public voice was boisterous and provocative. In his dandified dress style with cape and cane, the imperial peacock was an eloquent speaker. He was a gadfly and a contrarian who blandly and deliberately declared the rankest heresies from public pulpits. He opined that men are by their very nature unequal, and from these equalities naturally flow inequalities in wealth, eminence, and happiness. He disparaged free public education. Children should be educated according to their station in life, and tuition should be charged because there was absolutely no difference between a public soup house and a public free school. He was thereafter sometimes known as Soup House Charlie. He urged the police to use their revolvers to save our courts the trouble of trying a burglar. In the Yale Law Review for 1899, he wrote a paper called Lynch Law and Its Remedy. And his conclusion in that was, it is of course an evil that law should be occasionally enforced by lawless means, but it is, in my opinion, a greater evil that it should be habitually duped and evaded by means formerly lawful. He was apologizing for lynching.